Aristeia, of course, Pallas, the son of Evander, right? And at 4:30, he's ready to go. He sees his troops running away, many of the Trojans, and he asks them, "Where are you flying, friends?" We will have seen this in the Iliad as well, where you insult and encourage at the same time. "Where are you flying, friends? I beg you now by your self-respect, your own brave work, by your chief Evander's name, your victories won, by my own rising hopes to match my father's fame. Don't trust to your feet. Hack the foe with swords. That's the way. Over there, where the massed infantry pushes forward, that's where your famous land demands you back with Pallas in the lead. No gods force us on. We're mortals, harried by mortal enemies. They have as many hands and lives as we. Look, the ocean shuts us in with immense blockades of waves. No land to fly to. What, shall we head for the sea or Troy?" Fighting words, we're told. And he hurls himself at the enemy's massed ranks. We then will have his Aristeia. He will kill a number of men. Lagus comes to mind here. A couple of twins. This reminds us in the Iliad of how many twins die. Cutting off heads, cutting off hands. The descriptions are really grotesque. He runs Rhotius through at line 470, spilling out of his car in death throes as he's on his chariot, right? We have all kinds of descriptors of killing here. The Latins will also have their killings. Helsius will have his killing. But we're told that fathers can't protect sons, even though in early times they tried to maybe keep their sons from out of the war. Pallas will pray. Again, we have different kinds of fighting that goes on. And then finally, we have Turnus, who will see Pallas. And at line 520, Turnus will say, "Now's the time to halt your fighting. I will go after Pallas. Pallas is mine now, my prize alone. If only his father were here to watch it all in person." You'll remember that really kind of tragic departing between Evander and his son Pallas, as if he somehow knew his son wouldn't come back. We're also told that Pallas sees Turnus, and interestingly, echoing the exact same lines of "now's the time" at 5:30, he says, "Now's my time to win some glory." Kleos is what we call this in the Iliad, didn't we? Either for stripping off a wealth of spoils or dying a noble death. My father can stand up after either fate. Enough of your threats, he says to Turnus. Pallas and Turnus will fight. Pallas, interestingly, in line 345, Pallas will pray to Hercules, who of course they were sacrificing to with his father Evander when Aeneas showed up in book 9, right? He says, "Hercules, my father's board, the welcome you met as a stranger. I beg you, stand by the great task I'm tackling now. May Turnus see me stripping the bloody armor off his body, bear the sight of his conqueror, eyes dulled in death." We're told at line 550, Hercules heard the young man's prayer, suppressed a groan that rose up from his heart, and wept helpless tears as the father said these tender words to his son. In other words, now we're going to get Jove. Echoing lines that, interestingly, Zeus will in fact have heard from Hera in Iliad 16, right when he wanted to save Sarpedon, and Hera said, "Absolutely no way." Here Jove echoes the same words. Each man has his day. These are oft-quoted lines, of course, by young Roman soldiers as they memorize parts of the Aeneid, and certainly this will be memorized. Each man, 555, each man has his day, and the time of life is brief for all, and never comes again. But to lengthen out one's fame with action, that's the work of courage. How many sons of gods went down under Troy's high wall? Why, I lost a son of my own with all the rest. Sarpedon, this is the most direct link back to the Iliad that Virgil will make in all of his poem. For Turnus too, his own fate calls, and the man has reached the end of all his days on earth. So Jove declares, and turns his glance away from the Latian fields below. Pallas throws a spear, only a scratch. Turnus throws a spear through Pallas's shield, and Pallas will die. However, we got the armor clanging around him as he falls. That's very Iliadic kind of language. And then at 580, we're told Pallas dies, pounding enemy earth with his bloody mouth as Turnus triumphs over him. You're going to have this, victory dance, the insulting of the corpse and all that. We saw that in the Iliad. He says, "You Acadians, listen. Take a message home to Evander, the father of Pallas. Tell him this. The Pallas I sent him back will serve him right. Whatever tribute a tomb can give, whatever balm a burial, I am only too glad to give, but the welcome he gave Aeneas costs him dear. In other words, this is what he gets, this is what he pays for. With that, we're told, he stamped his left foot on the corpse, stripped away the sword belt's massive weight, this thing that goes across the shoulder to the belt, and this will be an important moment for later in our poem. Massive weight engraved with its monstrous crime, and this is an important symbol. This is the symbol, if you will, at level 2B that we'll already begin to gesture towards. Why? Because later on, Turnus will be wearing this very sword belt, and this will be the sword belt very much that will kind of seal his doom. In the same way that at the moment Hector kills Patroclus and puts on his armor, the armor of Achilles actually, we said in our earlier lectures, that's the moment when Hector is already dead. Same will be true for Turnus. It's just a matter of time. And we're even told at line 595, how Turnus glories in the spoil, exults to make it his. How blind men's minds to their fate and what the future holds. How blind to limits when fortune lifts men high. Yes, the time will come when Turnus will give his all to have Pallas hold intact, when all is spoiled. This very day he'll loathe. Echoing the same kind of notion that we had with Hector killing Patroclus, right, in the Iliad. But a huge throng of friends is attending Pallas, moaning, weeping, and bears him back upon his shield. Oh, you return to your father, his great grief and glory. The first day gave you to war, and this day takes you off, and still you leave behind great heaps of Latian dead. In other words, you only fought in one battle in one day, and yet you did your job well. Aeneas is told, and he becomes a beast, a monster, in the same way that Achilles does in the Iliad, and immediately just starts jacking people. We're told that he takes 4 sons of Salmo, fighters, all at 615, the same number reared by Ephans. Aeneas takes them alive to offer Pallas' shade and soak his flaming pyre with captive blood. He's going to offer them up. Then we have the deadly, he wings from afar a deadly spear at Magus, who ducks under it, reminding us of Lycaon in the whole exchange between Lycaon and Achilles in Iliad 21, line 40. He begs for his life. I beg you now, by your father's ghost, by your hopes for rising Ilius, your own son, spare this life of mine for my father and my son. Ours is a stately mansion. Deep inside lie buried bards of ringed silver and heavy weights of gold, some of it tooled, some untooled, mine alone. How can a Trojan victory hinge on me? How can a single life make such a difference? In other words, you don't need to kill me. Magus begged no more, as Aeneas lashed back. All those bars of silver and gold you brag of, save them for your sons. I got no interest in teammates, sounding very much like Achilles, right? Such bargaining in battle, Turnus already cut it short when he cut Pallas down, line 630. So, the ghost of my father, so my son declares, and seizing Mangus's helmet tight in his left hand, wrenching back his neck as the man prays on, he digs his sword blade deep down to the hilt. Whoa! So see, we got some pretty graphic stuff. He as well kills a priest next, just like Odysseus does in Odyssey 22, line 345. We have all kinds of killing. Aeneas blazing on, 653. We got another one who begs for his life in Torquatus. Aeneas will taunt him at 660, and then he will kill him as well. We're told that Aeneas just kills all the finest of these Rutilians as he just goes one to the next. He's like Aegeon in line 670, who has 100 hands just spinning and killing as we go. Those of you who are gamers, you've seen this kind of craziness where you just have killing after killing. It's just rampage. And in fact, when the horses charge at Aeneas, he charges the chargers. That's the kind of thing that goes on. Aeneas will wound a couple of brothers, and the one, Liger, at line 705, will beg, and Aeneas will say, no, follow your brother. So all of this is just the insanity, just like Achilles killing all those Trojans. Then we will have the great blockade is finally over at 715, and then this interesting exchange, very quickly. Jove and Juno will speak. And Juno asks if she can save Turnus. And Jove will come back at 735 and say, if what you want is reprieve from instant death, some breathing space for the doomed young man, we're talking Turnus, and you acknowledge the limits I lay down, then whisk your Turnus away, pluck him out of the closing grip of fate. That much room for indulgence I will give you. But if some deeper longing for mercy stirs beneath your prayers, Maybe Job is thinking about Sarpedon when he was Zeus, right? Back in the Iliad. Some notion the whole thrust of the war can shift and change. You're feeding empty hopes. In other words, we know how this thing's going to end. You can save Turnus a little bit, but the final lines of the Aeneid will be that Aeneas will kill Turnus. It's only a matter of time. You only save him for tomorrow, if you will, right? But you can save him at least for a day. And Juno does this really strange thing where she will create a phantom to look like Aeneas. He runs away to the ships. Turnus will chase after him, right? He will attack the ghost of Aeneas. When he's on the ship, she cuts the cables at 780, and then all of a sudden it's off, and Turnus realizes that he has been fooled. Aeneas will call for Turnus, and Turnus is gone. Then Turnus will have this amazing prayer in 790 because he realizes he's been fooled, duped. Almighty Father, he says, so you find my guilt so great? You're dead set on my paying such a price? Where have I come from? Where am I racing now? Read both literally and figuratively, right? What is this flight that takes me home? A coward. Will I ever see my Laternine walls and camp again? What of those gallant men who backed my sword and me? All of them. What disgrace. I deserted them all to die an unspeakable death. Now, he says, I see them. Notice earlier we were talking about blind, right? I see them straggling, lost. I hear them groaning as they go under. What shall I do? At line 800. If only the earth gave deep enough to take me down. Better, pity me wins. Turnus begs you with all his heart. Dash this ship on a reef or cliff, or run her to ground. In other words, I wish I were dead. And then he asks, should I fall on my sword 3 times? Juno has to keep him from killing himself, and then the ship will take him home. Now, we're told at line 815 to finish the book, Mezentius' turn. Now, we know about this Mezentius guy. He's a bad guy, right? Evander said that they had to get rid of him because he was so bad. He would tie a dead person, a corpse, and a living person together to kill the living person slowly. That's how bad this guy is. He has all kinds of kills. It's interesting. He has his own Aristeia. And he will kill a number of people. And then we're told he even kills Mimas at line 830, who was a comrade of Paris just his age. We're told Paris lies dead in the city of his fathers. Mimas lies unsung on the Latian shores because killed by Mezentius. We then will have a great word picture of Mezentius. He's like a wild boar at bay who has been hunted. And now we're told Mezentius, for all of his attackers, rightful fury, none of them has the spine to fight him, we're told at 847. Swords drawn, they just bait him with missiles, far-flung cries, all at a safe distance. We're then told that a Greek named Acron shows up. He's just arrived in exile, leaving his marriage in the lurch, we're told. And Mezentius will see him. And like a famished lion stalking the cattle pens for prey, this is a simile we heard several times in the Iliad, he will kill Acron. Then he will kill Ordes. And then he will taunt Ordes in the final words. He will taunt Ordes as Ordes is wounded and ready to die at 872. But Ordes will speak back and he says to Turnus, you don't have long to crow, whoever you are, my victor. Vengeance waits. The same fate watches over you too. You'll lie here in the same field very soon. Die now, Mezentius cries, grinning through his rage. As for my own death, and this is again Mezentius saying it, as for my own death, the Father of gods and King of men will see to that. Mezentius, vaunting, pries the spear from Ordes' body, grim repose and an iron sleep press down his eyes and seal their light in night that never ends. We have a whole bunch more killing. We're told at line 890, ruthless Mars, we think of the Ares in the Iliad, was drawing the battle out, dead even now, equaling out the grief, the mutual slaughter. Both sides are getting killed. Victors and victims killing, killed in turn, both sides locked. Not a thought of flight, not here. We think about that tragedy that was the great Gettysburg conflict between the Confederate forces and the Union forces. Many used some of these lines as journalists and as writers to try to describe what some of the battles of our own American Civil War were like. The gods in the halls of Jove are filled with pity, feeling the futile rage of both great armies, mourning the labors borne by mortal men. And then here comes Mezentius one more time. His eyes will narrow as he gets ready to kill one more time. And he'll even say it at line 910. Let this right arm, my only God, and the spear I hurl be with me now. I dedicate you, Lausus, his son, decked in the spoils I stripped from their pirate's corpse, my son, my living trophy over Aeneas. Well, enough, we're told. Aeneas' shield protects him as Mezentius will throw it at him. Unfortunately, we have the unlucky Antores, that is the friend of Achilles, who will in fact die because the spear will come off of the shield and will lodge in Antores. We then will have Aeneas, who will wound Mezentius in the groin, but he doesn't kill him. But we're told then, Lausus, the son of Mezentius, seeing it all, groaned low, 935, groaned low, and with love he bore his father, tears poured down his face, and now Lausus, your fated brutal death, and your brave deeds. If glorious work, long ages old, can win belief, Virgil says, neither your record nor yourself will I ever fail to sing, young soldier, you deserve our praise. Line 939. Now, this is important because Virgil, it's clear, wants to celebrate the idea that young men dying in battle should be remembered because it is glorious. Again, to go back to those comments we made before, so much is made of this in All Quiet on the Western Front, how young German soldiers, young men in private military academies were taught this kind of thing, and then they went out to fight in the battle looking for glory, and of course they found horrific death as portrayed in All Quiet on the Western Front. We then will have Aeneas fighting against the young man, and it doesn't take long for Aeneas to kill him. And then he taunts Lausus and threatens Lausus. He says it to him at line 960, why hurry your death, daring beyond your powers? Your love of your father lures you into folly. It doesn't take long, and he has killed him. But then, as soon as Aeneas kills him, this is fascinating. It's like the moment we said when Achilles was with Priam, and he, in book 24 of the Iliad, and he finally regains his humanity. We kind of start to see it in book 23 when he smiles during the games for Patroclus. Here we've got a moment when Aeneas begins to reclaim his humanity. But then, line 970, when the son of Anchises, Aeneas, saw his dying look, the look of Lausus, his face so ashen, awesome in death, he groaned from his depths in pity, reached out his hand as this picture of love for a father pierced his heart, and said, this is the words that Aeneas speaks, forlorn young soldier, what can Aeneas in all honor give you to match your glory now? What gifts are worthy of such a noble spirit? Keep your armor that gave you so much joy. I give you back to your father's ashen shades, if it offers any solace, and this at least may comfort you for a death so cruel. And then he calls him, unlucky boy, you went down under the hand of great Aeneas. In other words, he says, if you've got to die, right, at least you died going down fighting against the great Aeneas. Now, some have seen this as taunting. Others have seen this as a legitimate compliment. If you are going to go down, many athletes have said this, if I'm going to lose, I'd love to lose to the very best. Does that go to here, right? Well, Lausus is brought back to where Mezentius is sitting under a tree. He's been wounded in the groin. Lausus is on his own shield being brought back, reminding us that it was Spartan warriors' mothers who said, return with your shield or on it, right, long enough to be able to carry the warrior. And it's at that moment that when the father sees the son, he clings to his son's body, crying. And it's at this point that we realize, okay, Mezentius is a bad guy, but he does have some kind of seeming redeeming quality. We'll say the same when we study Shakespeare's Macbeth, that at the end when Macbeth goes up against Macduff, there does seem to be a bit of redeeming quality of a really nasty tyrant like Macbeth, and we'll hold Mezentius in this passage in mind. At line 1005 or so, Mezentius will say, was I so seized by the lust for life, my son, I let you take my place before the enemy's sword, my own flesh and blood. What, your father saved by your own wounds? Kept alive by your death? Oh, he says it, now at last I know the griefs of exile. I, in all my pain, at last a wound strikes home. I've stained your name, my son, with my own crimes. Detested, drummed from my father's scepter and their throne. Remember, they threw him out because he had done such terrible things. I owed a price to my land and people who despised me. If only I paid in full with my own guilty life by any death on earth. But I live on. Not yet have I left the land of men in life and light of day, but I will leave it all. In other words, I'm ready to die. And certainly that's exactly what happens. He speaks to his pony, Rehoboth, who is about to die by Aeneas, by the way. And he returns at 10:30. 3 times he shouts, and the challenge is made. He closes on his enemy at 10:40. The spear post for the kill, and Mezentius will answer back, "Why, you king of cruelty," which is ironic because he himself is a king of cruelty, "now that you've killed my son, why try to make me cringe? That was the only way you could destroy me. I never flinch at death or bow to a single god. No more words. I'm here to die, but I bring you these gifts first." And with that he flung a javelin at his enemy, we're told, planting one shaft after another, racing around in a sweeping rain. But the golden boss of Aeneas' shield stands fast. Aeneas kills Mezentius' horse. The horse falls on Mezentius. Aeneas dashes up at line 1063, wrenching his sword from his sheath. He triumphs over him. "Where's the fierce Mezentius now?" he screams. Where's his murderous fury?" And the Tuscan fighter, we're told now, last words, reminding us, of course, of Hector's last words to Achilles, gazing up at the sky, drinking in the air as he returned to his senses, and said, "My mortal enemy, why do you ridicule me, threaten me with death? Killing is no crime. I never engaged in combat on such terms. No such pact did Lysias seal between you and me, that you would spare my life." 1070. "One thing is all I ask. If the vanquished may ask a favor of the victor, let my body be covered by the earth. Too well I know how my people's savage hatred swirls around me." He knows that he was a hated king. "Shield me, I implore you, from their fury. Let me rest in the grave beside my son, in the comradeship of death." With those words, we're told, fully aware, he offers up his throat to the sword, and across his armor pours his life in waves of blood. Powerful stuff to finish the poem, Book 10. Well, let's go quickly now to levels 2 and 3. At 2a, well, the Beowulf line from Beowulf Part 2, when Beowulf says to Hrothgar, "All men must die. Let him who may win glory or death." Certainly a message of this book, no question. And the Romans, of course, they love this book. For many Roman readers, this was the best book of the entire poem. Another thing to point out of a message is that the gods, according to this poem, the gods are not, maybe we would spell it K-N-O-T, given the difficulty of the thorny question of the Odyssey. They're not to blame, right? Of course, we have that other issue with the gods, that fate versus the will